Welcome, everyone. My name is Jamie Schenker-Pissarro. I am the Associate Director of the Temple Small Business Development Center. We offer consulting and training programs for entrepreneurs to help them start and grow. Lately, we've been doing everything virtually, so that includes our no-cost consulting, and we've been doing regular webinars on relevant topics. So for tonight, we are talking about the steps that you need to take as a business owner to get yourself ready to meet all of the requirements that the federal, that the state and local agencies may require of you in order to take advantage to become eligible for some of their disaster relief programs. I'm sure you have seen the EIDL and the PPP programs, and there are more coming. So that is really where we wanted to focus on tonight, just that there are a lot of requirements, a lot of checklists that you have to go through as a small business owner. So we have our staff who is very passionate about this topic. So we have our director, Maura Schenker, and a senior business consultant, Carl Kraus, who will be talking about these things with you today. And then at 6:30, we will be joined by Brian Higgins, who's the Deputy Chief of Staff for Council Member Alan Dom, and he'll be talking about a specific program that's helping with insurance coverage with all of the recent developments. So he'll pop in at around 6:30 to talk about that because it's really interesting what they're doing. Let me go through and show you some of the other upcoming webinars that we have. We have a pretty long list. All of this can be found on our website, and I'll also share in the chat box our Google Doc of resources, which includes all of these links. So you just have to click and you can register. It also includes other resources that we've been keeping tabs on, as well as pretty updated information on different funding programs right now. So we try to update that almost every day, and I'll include a link in the chat. If you do have questions as we go, putting them in the chat is probably the best. And if you choose the option of sending it to everyone, then we'll be able to have that saved, and then we may be translating that later. So if you don't want your question being shared, it'd be best to just send that out to everyone, and then we'll get to it. This is our contact information, and I'll leave this up here. The best way to connect with us is probably to email sbdc@temple.edu or to visit our website. And then you can sign up. If you are a new client, you can sign up there, and we will get in touch with you shortly. So I think I will turn it over to Maura and Carl.
Thanks so much, Jamie. I appreciate the intro and all of your hard work in making this happen, you and Jesse. So very happy to be here. And what Carl and I are going to do is kind of have a conversation about the programs that are available, the benefits of some of the programs, and how you can get yourself and your business ready to apply. So we understand that there's a large informal economy or underground economy here in Philadelphia where people kind of operate under the radar. Maybe they, feel that getting licensed by the city is a hassle, and L&I and, quarterly tax filings, and, there's a lot of paperwork in running a business. And sometimes it does just seem easier to kind of run it on the fly, cash basis, maybe take Venmo, PayPal, and stay under the radar. But as we found with the pandemic and the other, social issues we've been having now, there's very little protection for you as a non-business business owner. So if you don't have a registered legitimate business, you can't have insurance. You can't apply for the programs at the city, state, and federal level, which are here to help you. You don't own a business which can be sold and can be leveraged and can help you build credit and buy property and, pass something on to your family and build intergenerational wealth. Business ownership and property ownership are two key tools for communities to build intergenerational wealth, because they are stable. And so the SBDC, one of our missions is to help businesses start. So if you have been operating under the radar and you would like to take advantage of the programs that are here for businesses, we can help you navigate some of the city, state, and federal processes, how to get an EIN. Getting an EIN number from the federal government is free. Registering your business with the city is actually free. The only cost is a $125 fee at the state level for registering your business. And everything can be done online. And we are working online and working remotely. If you don't have a computer, you can Zoom on your phone or FaceTime with us, and we can walk you through everything right from your phone. So don't let a lack of internet stop you. Don't let a lack of hardware stop you. We can always make it work to support you and help you with your business. So did I miss anything about the benefits of actually having a legitimate business? I mean, I'm sure I missed a lot about the benefits, but it's not as scary as you think it is. And there is so much value and benefits. The benefits far outweigh the kind of pain in the assery of getting it started. Excuse my French.
Well, yeah, again, thank you, Jamie and Jesse, for setting this up today. We appreciate it. And one thing that I don't think you mentioned, Mara, that it does being properly registered business allows you access to programs that are available both right now during the COVID-19 pandemic and the recovery and survival programs that are available, but during regular times as well. There's many programs that are available through the city, through the state, and through the federal government that are available to provide support both from a financial standpoint, but also from legal help and licensing help and things like that are not accessible if you aren't a real business, if you aren't a registered, legally established business. And so that, again, is part of the benefits of doing that process.
And a business offers you as a person a layer of liability and protection. If you don't have a business and you're selling a good or a service, you can still be sued, but instead of your business being sued, you as a person, as an individual, would be liable under a lawsuit. And it's really different. And the effects and ramifications and what you have to lose by not having a formal business is significant. So remember, a business is an umbrella. It shields you, as it shields you, your family, and your personal assets, and protects you. So I think Carl and I would like to talk a little bit about some of the specific programs that are available to help businesses because of the pandemic. We can start with the PPP and a brief overview. Carl, you want to run away with the PPP?
Sure, I'd like to. So the Paycheck Protection Program was established as part of the CARES Act to provide funding to companies to allow them to maintain their employees as employees or to bring their staff back from unemployment if they had already been furloughed or laid off. The program is a loan that is provided through a qualified lending institution that can be forgiven if it is spent on the allowable expenses, the big one of which is payroll, because the whole idea of the payroll protection program is in its name. It's to provide payroll to keep your employees off of unemployment. Originally, it was set to operate over an 8-week period. Last week, I think it was, or the week before, Congress passed and the president signed a bill that extends that to 24 weeks now, which gives you much more flexibility on how you can spend that money. And also it allows you, in reality, it allows you to spend almost all of it, if not all of it, on payroll costs themselves, which simplifies the process of requesting forgiveness of that loan. If the loan is forgiven, if everything is spent properly and documented properly and the loan is forgiven, it essentially becomes a grant. It is free money to your business to be able to keep your employees employed in the business. Now, one of the problems with it has been, especially here in Southeast Pennsylvania, is that many businesses have not been able to operate. So companies have gotten that loan and have not been able to spend it on useful payroll, we'll call it, paying people to do useful work. Some companies have chosen to pay their employees not to come to work because work was closed, and try to get some work done at their homes if there are things they could do, otherwise simply pay them. Other employers chose not to get the PPP loans because they couldn't pay their employees, they couldn't bring their employees back to work. With the extension to 24 weeks, that should now take us to a point where most businesses will be able to be opened at some level. And so the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, is applicable to a lot more companies, especially in our region, and it is still open. There is still about $130 million in the program that is available. So if you have not applied for it because you didn't think you could spend it properly, it is worthwhile to go talk to a bank and to look into the program. Come talk to us if you would like to talk about your specific situation, and we can help you to decide if the program makes sense for your business moving forward.
Great. So speaking of grants, I'm sure that many people have heard last week, the week before, Governor Wolf announced $225 million from the CARE Act that was going to be released in the form of grants for small businesses and micro businesses. So this money is actually going to be available probably by the end of next week or the following week, definitely by June 30th. So 17 community development financial institutions, which are called CDFIs, they're basically nonprofit lenders like Finanta or West Philadelphia Financial Services, the Enterprise Center. All of these are CDFIs. So 17 CDFIs have gotten together and formed a coalition, and they're going to use an online single application. So you just go to the online portal. If you have fewer than 25 employees and less than $1 million in annual revenue, you are eligible to apply for this money. So it's a grant between $5,000 and $50,000. It's 100% grant, no loan. You don't have to have an existing relationship with a CDFI. So unlike the PPP, where you needed to have, where lenders tended to give preferential treatment to people they already knew and companies they already work with, that's not an issue here. There'll be multiple rounds of funding, up to 4 rounds. The application process will be open for 10 days. It is not going to be first come, first serve. So unlike the PPP or EIDL, as long as you apply within the 10-day window, your application will be accepted. And then there'll be a priority scale. So historically disadvantaged, minority-owned businesses, businesses in low-income census tracts, they'll be given priority for this funding. If you don't get funded in the first round, your application is automatically transferred to the next round of funding because you'll be in a different pool and the cutoff point for the money will be different. So you'll move into subsequent rounds of funding, but it will prioritize people who were traditionally left out of the PPP and the EIDL loan. The amount of money will be based on, your business size. The application process will be done completely online. You'll still need to be tax compliant. You'll need 1 year of tax revenue. You'll need 1 month of a bank statement. You'll need to tell tell the CDFIs what you're going to use the money for, but there aren't restrictions. So you can use it to purchase PPE for your employees. So if you need masks, sanitizer, cleaning solutions, things like that, you can use it to pay off debts. If you haven't been able to pay your vendors, you can use the money to catch up on your bills. You can use it to pay your rent. You can use it to pay payroll. As long as you're using it for a legitimate business expense, the money is yours to use in the best way for your business. And if you're not sure what that is, of course, the SBDC is here to help you spend the money in the best way possible. So that program will be opening soon and will be available to assist with the application and assist you with strategically planning how to use your funds once you've gotten the grant. You also may have heard that this week, 2 days ago, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which we call the EIDL, the EIDL, has reopened. That was the very first program that the government unleashed upon us. It is a standard disaster recovery loan from the SBA, and it was never really set up for a pandemic disaster. It's what, you know, people used when Sandy hit, 9/11. Mostly it's like physical property loss. So there were some problems with the rollout and some changes made to the application because really, obviously, the pandemic wasn't about loss of property. So there needed to be some tweaks to the program, which the SBA did. It's an interesting program because unlike the PPP loan, you don't go through a lender. The money is lent to you directly from the SBA. It is only a loan. There is a portion that you could get as a grant up to $10,000, which is at $1,000 per employee. But that is not necessarily guaranteed. And if you have a PPP loan, you will have to, they will subtract the money that they advanced you from the PPP. So they won't give you free money twice. You either get the PPP forgiven or you get that up to $10,000 forgiven, but not both. So just a little heads up, if you have a PPP, you might want to apply for an EIDL loan if you haven't already, and not check off for the advance, because that is a checkoff box. So if you have a PPP, it's probably best that you don't choose to get that cash advance because you will end up paying it back. The EIDL loan is at 3.75% for up to 30 years. It's amortized over 30 years, so there's a very long repayment window for it. It's a working capital loan, so it has fewer restrictions on what the money can be spent on than the PPP. It is up to $10 million, although I think they might change that with the new round and it's less money. Is it less money, Carl? Unmute yourself and tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Right now, they are limiting it to $150,000.
Oh my God, from $10 million to $150,000. I love our government. Okay, so ignore that. It's $150,000. You should apply for it. We always encourage our clients to apply for both programs because we do expect a credit crunch. So banks are lending their own money, their own capital, your money, but their capital, through the PPP program and through lines of credit. And we know that we're in a recession. We know that businesses are hard hit. Banks will tighten up the restrictions for getting loans in the future. That's just how banks react. They are pretty risk averse and kind of conservative organizations. So credit will be harder to get as we move out of this wave of the pandemic. So if you have the opportunity to have the EIDL in your back pocket, we recommend that you go ahead, apply, get your hands on as much cash as you can, because cash flow is what's going to be able to carry you through recovery here and hopefully resilience as we brace for a second wave. One thing that's important to talk about with this economic recovery is that you can't sell your product or your services if no one is buying, and consumer confidence and consumer spending is down. We have record high unemployment numbers. That means people are not spending their money. Unemployed people tend to go into debt, and then when they have income again, they pay off the debt rather than go out and buy lots of shiny new things. So it's important to remember that just because we may move into a green or yellow phase doesn't mean that your customers are going to flock back out. There's social distancing restrictions. There's all kinds of safety precautions in place for your employees, for your customers, and you should not expect pre-pandemic revenues anytime soon. There's one more lending program, the Main Street program, which Carl is so much more knowledgeable about than I am. So Carl, would you mind giving an overview of that program, please?
Sure. There's a program that I believe was part of the CARES Act as well, that's called the Main Street Lending Program. This is kind of a unique program in that it is, again, it's bank loans, but those loans will immediately, the majority of the value of the loan, 95% of the loan, will immediately be purchased by the Federal Reserve Bank from the lenders. So what this means is that the lenders are able to give out more loans because they're only holding on to 5% of the loan. So it allows the banks to maintain their capital ratios that are required for the solvency and the stability of the bank, but yet be able to give out more loans. These loans are for kind of the small to medium-sized businesses. So the loans, the minimum loan size is $250,000, which, because of the way the program is structured, means that businesses must have at least $75,000 in profit before taxes, interest, depreciation, and amortization. Complicated, but basically think about your profit, your bottom line profit, your net income. That's probably a fairly good measure of what your EBITDA, or your earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization is. So it's for larger small companies, and then the maximum loan goes up to 10 million. So it's for fairly large, what they would still refer to as mid-sized businesses. This has been announced. They've begun taking applications from banks to participate in the program. They have not launched the program for borrowers yet. There is a lot of information on the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston website. They're the bank that is going to be, they're the Federal Reserve Bank that's administering the program. You can find more information there. These are five-year loans. The first 2 years are interest-free, or I'm sorry, the first 2 years are payment-free. There's no payments for the first 2 years. And then I believe it's 15% in year 3, 15% in year 4, and 70% balloon payment in year 5. So it stretches out down the road for when you have to pay the loan off. The interest rate is very attractive. It's at LIBOR plus 3%. LIBOR right now is around 0.5%, so it's a 3.5% loan, roughly. But it will be floating rate based on how the LIBOR rate, which is the London Interbank something rate, offer rate, interbank offer, yeah. So it's basically one of the measures like the prime rate. You've probably heard of the prime rate. LIBOR is an international measure that's kind of the same idea. It's the bank rate, what the banks lend each other under. Anyway, so that should, again, that's another program that should be moving and taking applications by the end of the month. And that is, unfortunately, unlike the Pennsylvania COVID relief program, this is a first come, first served program. So it's going to be, once they start up accepting applications, they will be a mad rush to get in line for this money. If you're interested in this, I would certainly advise you to, you can come talk to us about it and we can discuss it in more detail. You can look up the information on the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston site, but also talk to your banker who is a qualified lender under the Fed programs. And this is typically going to be a national bank, and most state registered banks or chartered banks are part of the Fed program as well. So ask your bank if they're participating. If not, try to find a bank that is. There is a list of participating banks that will be updated on that Fed Boston site. And like I said, you can come talk to us and we can talk about your specific situation, see if it's a fit and explain the program in more detail.
Thank you, Carl.
Because it is a Federal Reserve Bank program and it's complicated.
Yes, so a lot of these programs seem complicated, especially for the smaller businesses who may not have borrowed money. You know, most small businesses in Philadelphia, they use their revenues for expansion. Instead of going to the bank and borrowing money, they tend to use the money that they earn as self-finance anything they need to expand. And so some of these applications can seem intimidating, even though they don't really need to be. And we're here to demystify the process for you. There's no reason to be scared of a loan application or, you know, a grant application. It looks way more complicated than it is. And basically they all ask for generally the same information. So once you understand the words that they're using, like Carl threw out LIBOR and EBITDA and all kinds of things, you know, once you understand what those basically mean and the, you know, generally accepted accounting principles, you'll be able to handle this no problem. If you can run a business, you can handle this.
So at this time, I wanted to take a pause because we do have another panelist that I mentioned earlier. So that's Brian Higgins, the Deputy Chief of Staff for Councilmember Alan Dom. So hopefully, let me make sure his audio and visual is working if he wants. And he's going to tell us about an interesting program that the city is working on right now. Brian, is your audio working okay?
It is. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
I'm having a really bad hair day, so I might stay off video. So, hi everyone. I'm Brian Higgins, Deputy Chief of Staff for Councilman Alan Dom. The councilman and myself toured 52nd Street on the Monday after the civil unrest had started, and it was actually sort of disturbing and eye-opening. But what we came across and what we started talking about was where business owners could receive help for this. And the first thought was obviously insurance, their liability, business owners' liability insurance, and also their landlords' insurance policies. And so we started asking a couple of the owners on business owners on 52nd Street about their insurance programs, and they seemed relatively interested, but like a lot of business owners, when it comes to insurance, you know you have to have it and you get it and you kind of leave it at that and you hope you never have to use it. And not many of them really understood the claims process or what they needed to do. So we started talking about it with them, and out of that sort of came this idea of setting up a volunteer-based program that would help business owners across the city that were affected with looting, with vandalism, with damage done during the civil unrest to file claims and help them through the process. So whether they have legal questions around whose insurance is actually responsible, whether it be their own business liability insurance or their landlords, our group of volunteers through the Barristers Association of Philadelphia can help answer those questions and facilitate the claims for them. So we kind of launched this program on 52nd Street and canvassed the area with flyers, with the CDCs, the Enterprise Center, with the business associations, and try to get the word out to as many businesses as possible, and have since then spread to all areas of the city. And to date, we haven't gotten nearly as many businesses calling in as we thought we would, but I think that's generally because the businesses that were hit the hardest have just shut down, and they're not open. Along Germantown Avenue and Erie and Broad, they were hit really hard there, and the majority of the businesses are still closed and shuttered. And so we've reached out to the business associations to help reach those business owners at their residence, at their homes, wherever they can, through email, only because the boots on the ground weren't getting the message across. And so we've gone to other methods. So the program basically, I serve as the point person. My phone number's been blasted out now to the Inquirer, throughout the Inquirer, and I have gotten some solicitation calls, which, it's all well and good, but I try to convince them into helping rather than and volunteering rather than actually looking for business. But the business owners will call me, and then I would set them up with one of our volunteers. And so to date, we've had about 14 to 15 businesses receive help in filing claims and or legal questions around their insurance. So we've definitely helped some people. We feel like there should be probably between 50 to 100 businesses that we could probably affect here and help. So we're still reaching out, and we're still trying to get these businesses any assistance that we can to get them back into business. It's been obviously a rough year, and the businesses need every bit of assistance as we can provide them. So that in a nutshell is the program. And if there are any questions for me, I would gladly take questions at this time.
Yeah. So Brian, is the volunteer program open to businesses outside the 52nd Street corridor yet, or not yet?
It is open to any business within the city.
Okay, excellent. And so just to reiterate, these are all volunteer attorneys who are assisting with filling out the paperwork for these insurance claims to make sure that they are applying for the right thing, that they're saying the right thing, using the right language to try and increase their chances of getting coverage.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I as a former business owner, I had to file, I think, 1 or 2 claims over the years. And I remember how tedious the process was and all the documentation you needed. And so there might be areas around the documentation is now damaged or missing, was burned down.
Definitely.
So how do they go about filing these claims with missing information? What do they need to do? So there's a lot of questions around many different areas. And so the volunteer group can help answer those questions for them.
Yeah, certainly. And where should a business go right now if they were interested in the program? What's the best website or contact information?
Call me. my number. Yep. My number is 610-304-8529. And so any business that needs help, have them call me directly. I've been taking calls 24/7. Some people have called at like 11 o'clock at night. And then I'll get them directly to a volunteer who will reach out to them as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's really
Absolutely.
Great that exists. I'll put your information in the chat box. I'm not seeing any questions though, so if you have to hop off.
I have a question.
I know you have another. There's one. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Brian. How are you? Good to see you in person. So many of our businesses, especially in the Kensington area, due to the COVID-19 shutdown, have seen an increase in vandalism and damage that was unrelated to the specific incidences of civil unrest. And I know this is true for quite a few other commercial corridors as well. Just as there is a limited amount of eyes on the street, there's been an uptick in some vandalism and physical damage to properties. Would those businesses also be eligible, or are we really trying to focus on serving specifically the businesses that experienced damage during those moments of civil unrest in the last few weeks?
No, we're open to pretty much everybody at this point. And so any of the business owners that, and Jesse, I think, pardon me if I get this wrong, but I think we talked about on the phone yesterday, there's a bit of a gray area around business interruption insurance, which not many small business owners have, but some do. And because of the COVID shutdown, they were unable to use that particular rider in their insurance. This might help with the ability to use that rider now if there was damage done by looting or vandalism, whether it be during civil unrest or whether it be just during a regular Saturday that the business was damaged. So there might be a way to now activate the business interruption insurance, and the volunteers would help assist with that conversation. So anybody that has any damage since beginning of COVID, please just send them our way.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's really helpful. If you do have to jump off,
I think.
Was there another
Laura?
question? Or?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you knew of any other business assistance programs that were being discussed in City Council that you could maybe share or ask for advocacy. I mean, one of the things that we've seen happen is that, the council members are really listening to the business owners, and around, say, barbershops opening, we saw a lot of advocacy from Black and brown barbershops saying that they could open in the yellow phase, that they needed the opportunity to show that they could, observe the social distancing and the best safety and health practices. And they were allowed to do so. And so much of that is because business owners are grouping together and using their voices and advocating for themselves. And I'm just wondering if you could, talk a little bit about what would move council, what you need to see, or what other shifts that are happening can you speak to?
Well, I'm going to break that into probably two different buckets here. There's the regulatory, let's call that like the ability to open, and that which council has no authority over. That will fall to the state, and we will then follow guidelines from the state. So if we're in the yellow phase right now and X, Y, and Z businesses are allowed to operate under that, there's not much we can do as a governing body to change those guidelines right now. So we will continue to follow the state's guidance. As far as council and our programs to assist businesses, we are trying to, so I don't know if many of you have been made aware of the now revised the revised budget that was just sort of dropped today. It came out late last week that the revised budget is now going to be about $100 million short of what they had projected. So we have to go back to the drawing table and revise it yet again. And so there are things that are being cut out of the budget yet again that are very instrumental and important to business growth in the city, i.e. the Commerce Department's budget has been hacked to basically nothing. And some other programs that assist businesses are being basically done away with for the year until we can rebuild our revenue streams. So as a council body, we're sort of relying on outside sources right now, state and federal grants. There's the Pennsylvania Fund right now that is providing forgivable loans to small businesses for COVID-related issues or COVID-related shutdown. And I'll send that information over to Jamie just so she has it. If you
I can
don't
pop it
already
in the
have
chat box.
Okay. Remind me to email that right over to you as well. And so as a council body, I would like to say that we're more organized than we are. We're sort of all over the place right now with the budget and trying to figure out exactly where the cuts are going to come. And I think we're trying to do the best we can, but we're sort of all over the place, and the focus on business has not been by the majority of council members. We could be doing a better job, and that's why we sort of need outside organizations to push us to better support businesses. My particular councilman now, and is under his public stance is we need to focus now and take advantage of this crisis to support the business community and return the economic growth that we once had. Because right now everybody seems to be wanting to move to the suburbs, and so that urban environment is not necessarily booming like it once was. We have an opportunity to greatly change our tax structure in the city right now. And again, there's not necessarily a big political will because of the lack of revenues that we're facing, but there is an opportunity to get some of this stuff done now, where we could potentially put ourselves in a much, much better position for years to come. But we're like most council bodies and administrations, we tend to think more in the short term of what's happening right now. And I know that that's all important, but there also is an opportunity here to change our city for the better for the long term too. And so we're trying to focus on that as much as possible within council. Did I answer your question? I feel like I just talked about a lot of stuff that might or might not have answered the question.
The place. So there was no way to answer my question. It was 10 questions rolled into one, wrapped up in an enigma, hidden in a riddle. You're good. Thank you. Do we have other questions in the chat?
So I have one follow-up question. In addition to insurance, those of us who work closely with the small businesses as well as the Commerce Department have identified taxes as the other major barrier to people successfully securing any of the emergency funds. Are there any plans, or can I advocate for a plan for your council member's office or others to put together an army of tax professionals who could volunteer to ensure that our businesses are tax compliant enough to be eligible for these funds that are opening up soon?
So basically it's the 17th, so they'll have less than a month to get their taxes filed to make themselves eligible for any of these funds. If we should probably start having that conversation about aligning some tax professionals to assist with this. So please reach out to me tomorrow, and we'll begin this conversation of where do we start in getting tax professionals. I know we've had a slew of people call in and offer assistance one way or another. Some are accountants, some are lawyers, some are insurance professionals, real estate professionals. And so we have a pretty wide expertise of volunteers that have offered their assistance. So I'm sure we could round up quite a few tax professionals that could assist in getting all these businesses up, any of the businesses that need to be up to date so they can get any funding that's available.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we've been really pushing about a tax amnesty program, and I've been talking to people at Commerce. I've been talking to some of your colleagues at City Council, also at the state and federal level, Congressman Evans. because it's not just about people filing, the most recent set of taxes, but people who owe taxes. If they're not in compliance with a payment plan, they're not tax compliant.
Mm-hmm.
There's the filing, and then there's the payment of taxes. And
Sure.
I've actually suggested to a couple of people that a task force be put together, much like the one around looking at poverty from a holistic approach, because the tax issue is enormous, and it's stopping people. It stopped people from the First City Grant program that came out. It stopped people from the EIDL, all the federal programs, the city, state, all of the grant programs. Non-compliance in your taxes has just shut down so many people. And I'm incredibly concerned about those businesses that are not going to reopen and may be closing with a liability on their books, or those entrepreneurs need to be supported. If we're seeing, 30 to 50% of businesses that are closed right now not reopen, those entrepreneurs, those small business owners need to have a clean slate so that they can start again. They can't close out their business and have a liability or have to declare bankruptcy. They won't be able to start a new business. And if we hobble them so that they can't continue to grow new business in our city, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. There has to be a way for business owners to exit with grace from any current business that won't be able to reopen.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There is, so I want to put this out there. I probably shouldn't because it's going to hurt the city, but from a business standpoint, the way that BERT is paid, the BERT tax. So obviously any business that files their business taxes by July 15th has to pay the estimate of calendar year 19's taxes. So obviously calendar year 19 is probably going to be a record year for many businesses throughout the city compared to calendar year 20. So they're going to pay an estimate that's going to be, in most cases, twice as high, maybe 3 times as high as what they're going to end up paying in FY20. So there is a clause in the tax code that allows the business to not pay the full estimate of their current tax year if they can say that there's going to be a significant difference in their taxes come due the following year. It was written in the code for certain things like capital gains tax that were paid in 1 year or claimed in 1 year that drove your liability up. Therefore, you didn't have to pay that same liability the following year. So you can advise your any businesses that that they don't necessarily have to pay that full estimate. Talk with a tax professional if they can, if they hopefully use a tax professional to file their taxes, and exploit that clause in the tax code so they don't have to shell out all that money, because eventually the city's just going to have to return it next year or give it in the form of a credit, which cash in hand is pretty key at this point for most businesses. So I would advise you to anybody to tell any business that they don't have to pay the full amount of their estimated liability because of the current economic environment in the city right now. So it's a small piece of this, but it could potentially keep some businesses afloat right now.
Every little bit helps.
It does, absolutely.
Thank you for telling us about that.
Yeah, and again, you might get pushback from the city on that because they don't want people to do that, but
you don't know me. I can be a little pushy-backy myself. I wouldn't worry about that.
I won't. So,
Amy, wasn't there another tax, the UNO refund?
Yeah.
Come on, give up all your secrets, Brian. Don't hold out.
Well,
we talked about the BERT. Now let's talk about UNO refunds.
We haven't gotten an answer on this one yet, and I don't think they have a clear. There's been a clear decision made because of the grayness around it. So I was told last week that businesses had to start paying the UNO tax, even if they still weren't in business in that space. If they were the tenant on the lease, they had to start paying it again because the businesses were technically allowed to be open. And if they chose voluntarily to not be open, whether it be to looting or damage done, they still had to pay it. So we have another question. We have some questions out to the law department right now to give some clear definition to this. But as of right now, it has to be paid, is the way it looks. I hope that they sort of change that around right now, but I can't give you any real anything other than that right now. I don't know anything else. I wish I could, but
if businesses paid in March or April when everything was closed, they are eligible to file for a refund. Is that correct?
They should be eligible to file for a refund, or they can probably just carry that forward to June, July payments, because they should be April, and May. They should have received, or they didn't have to pay UNO for. So, and partial March.
Great.
So how quickly they would get a refund, I don't. I don't know that any refund's going to come quick out of the city right now because they're so short on cash, and that being a school tax or school district revenue, it might be even more difficult to get it out of the school district.
All right. So much good news everywhere. It's just win, win, win.
I feel like I feel like the bearer of bad news all around. I'll go back to that point of there is an opportunity for in every crisis there's an opportunity, and so we need to really focus on that and not focus on the short-term issues and how we're going to kick this can further down the road. We need to really strategize and come together and solidify a long-term economic plan that's going to benefit everybody in this city. And we've been really pushing for that. I would like to say we've gotten a few of our colleagues on board, but it's an uphill battle.
Yipper. Wow. Thank you for the conversation.
Yeah, we really
Absolutely.
appreciate you joining us tonight, and thank you to Jesse for connecting us.
I'm available anytime.
I've got your phone number now.
My number's on there. Listen, I love to talk about this stuff. I can't always promise I give you good news, but I'll give you the news. So.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that.
Anytime.
Well, thank you. If you need to pop off, you can go ahead.
I do, absolutely. Thank you guys, and have a good night. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
So Maura and Carl, so going back to kind of where we started, I was thinking maybe we could kind of summarize a lot of the pain points and what the first steps might be for businesses who are saying, you know what, you're right, Maura, I do want to protect myself. I do want to take advantage of the different programs. I got to start going down the straight and narrow path with my business. I feel a little overwhelmed. Where do I start?
sbdc@temple.edu, which will land you at Kiki, and Kiki will help you get into the PA SBDC network through our system, which is not hard. I just called it a system, but it's like a little e-sign up. We kind of need to collect some information because we're grant funded and the services are offered at no cost to the business owner. The SBA makes us collect some demographic information, and of course, the more you can share with us, the more we can help. We do not report. We don't report to the IRS. It's none of that, and you don't have to have a social security number. Like, we don't report anything about anybody. So we're more than happy to work with
And
people.
no judgment.
Yeah, no judgment. Okay, as a serial entrepreneur who has made every mistake in the book, I have no room for judgment, because literally, I mean, I bought the wrong house. Like, I bought the wrong house. I got nothing. On auction, I switched the digits from what the house I wanted, and I was so excited that when I saw it come up, I was like, there's the house, and it wasn't the house. I had mixed up the digits, which my husband never, ever, ever lets me forget, even though I bought more right houses than wrong houses. But like, literally every mistake, not having things in writing with a partnership agreement, signing loan documents without really understanding what I was signing, yeah, all kinds of craziness. So definitely no judgment, but you don't have to have a social security number. You don't have to have an ITIN. We have a Spanish speaking consultant. We can find translators. We can, we work with lots of people at various points in the process. We meet you where you are right now. We help you get where you need to be. And we do it as quickly and as gently as possible.
And so to quickly repeat, I know you mentioned, but I think it could be useful since it is approaching, and I think people might be excited about the new statewide grant. The main pieces that will be requested will be tax returns for.
Yeah. So you need 1 year of tax return, either 18 or 19. If you started your business like towards the end of 19 or even January 2020, you're still eligible. You won't have a tax return. They're going to ask for a first quarter P&L statement. So January through March, profit and loss statement, 1 month of bank account. So not a whole year's of records or anything, 1 month of bank account. They're going to ask you for a photo ID, just so that they know that you are who you say you are. So if you don't have a driver's license, it can be a state issued ID, or it can be a passport, but some kind of photo documentation. And they'll ask you for a couple sentences about how COVID has affected your business, and they'll ask you for a couple sentences about how you're going to use the money. There's no post forms to fill out. You don't have to submit receipts proving that you use the money for exactly what you said. Obviously, it's government funded. It's coming through the CARES Act. Potentially there could be audits, but I think the government has a lot better things to do than track down somebody who got a $5,000 grant and said they were going to spend it on PPE and debt to make sure that they spent it on PPE and debt. I think you're pretty much okay. Yes. So far, that's what we know about the application.
And the program will open by July 1st. We don't know the exact date, but it will open by July 1st. And it will be run on what I refer to as a cohort basis. It will not be a first come, first serve. The applications are going to be collected over a 10-day period. 10 days?
10 days?
Yeah, 10-day period, and then they will be evaluated. So you don't need to make the mad rush to get first in the door when they open the application period. So it'll be a calmer approach, and hopefully a much more equitable approach, because they will be able to evaluate all of the applications on even footing.
Right. And you don't have to have a relationship with the lender. So unlike PPP, there won't be any prioritizing when the applications go in based on whether you have an existing relationship or whether you've ever had a loan with a CDFI. So it should be a much more equitable distribution process.
Yeah.
And out of the 17 CDFIs participating, 10 of them are in Philadelphia. So my guess is anybody here has a relationship or knows at least the name of the one of the CDFIs. Yeah.
Okay. That is good. And I've been taking little notes of everything we've been talking about. So I'm trying to summarize the most basic compliance barriers that a business might face. I'm gonna write down insurance, taxes / bookkeeping, legal formation, gotta have that. And then the last one, putting in a credit banking relationship. So not doing the cash and carry, having a bank that you kind of have been maintaining a relationship with, it goes a long way. I mean, we saw that with PPP, those who had a banking relationship and were, those banks happened to be SBA approved lenders, you were in a lot better place. So I'm gonna mark all of those down. Any I'm forgetting in terms of like, what are the basics? If I need a checklist when you're getting in compliant as a small business.
Well, one of the things with the banking relationship is it's important to understand that a banking relationship is not simply having a business bank account with a business. You have to go in and talk to these people, get them to know you so that when you need them, they know who you are, they understand who you are. If you simply have a bank account with them, no one's paying attention to your bank account. So it's important to establish a real relationship, a real personal relationship with the people that are in your bank that do the business banking activities.
And we are actually on the 9th, we're bringing in Park Bank to do a morning workshop with us that will talk about, originally it was about preparing for a business loan, and it'll still cover that, but it'll be a little bit broader too. And it will definitely cover the banking relationship, since that is a crucial part of getting approved for a business loan. So that is on the 9th. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, we have so many good webinars coming up. I'm looking at the schedule like I'm so impressed.
We have a robust calendar.
Yes. Okay.
There are a lot of pieces to being a small business owner. Not easy. All right, so I'll post that here. And then we are at 7 o'clock. So if we don't have any questions, or if Jesse, if you want to add anything, we can probably wrap up for the evening. What do you say, Jesse?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. I'm having lots of computer challenges today. No, I just want to say thank you to you all. It's so wonderful to be able to partner with Temple Small Business Development Center, and to restate that for all of our small businesses who are starting out or who are in need of establishing these elements to help them be in direct compliance, we always direct them to the Temple Small Business Development Center, and folks have had wonderful experiences. And if you are a business in the Kensington, Fishtown, or Port Richmond area, please contact me or my colleague Jacob Norton at NKCDC, and we can help assist you to connect with Temple and other resources, and we will even come with you to your first banking appointment to create that relationship with your banker, if that helps you makes you feel better. So please lean on us as a resource as well.
Yes, NKCDC is a fabulous resource, and I know that from experience. When I moved onto East Lehigh Avenue and got involved with the NKCDC, I was looking for a space to open a business. They had all the locations published of what commercial spaces were available. They run wonderful programs for everyone in the neighborhood, not just about business, but the first-time homebuyer program, anything with negotiating and helping navigate like LIHEAP and abatements for real estate taxes and loop programs. I am a former board member of NKCDC. I'm just a big fan of the organization and the mission and the neighborhood. So. Member number 55 of the food co-op.
That's great, Maura.
10 years, a long time coming.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Carla Mora. We appreciate it. I think the recording will be really useful to have all this information in one place. But I think we will wrap up for tonight. What do you say? Dinner time?
Thank you for having us.
Thank
And,
you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Feel free to reach
Good
out to us.
night. Yep.
We'll send a follow-up email with all the resources that we put in the chat box today.
Thank you.